You are listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Welcome back to I Am Refocused Radio. Once again, we are here today, and we have another amazing show for you all today. We have our special guest, KAYR. He is not just an entrepreneur. He's a real estate investor and author whose journey has proven that, man, hard times don't last forever. I mean, you're talking about grit. I mean, you know I love Detroit Lions, but this guy right here, he has grit as well. He's going to share not just an amazing story, he's going to share all the amazing lives that he's also impacted, because he's someone that not just been through some struggles back in the day in West Philadelphia. Born and raised. Gotta say born and raised.
Born and raised on the playground where I spend most of my days.
I see. I love the energy already, because I thought I'd be risky, but I'm glad I pulled off. But he's someone that has risen to the top, on top of his game, and he's given back the playbook to a lot of inspiring people who wants to follow his footsteps. So first and foremost, I know I can probably spend another 5 minutes on your resume and what you've been able to do, but this cutting to the chase. KAYR, how you doing, man?
I'm doing excellent. I'm so excited to be here to talk about my story, my journey, my book. So I'm fired up. Thank you for having me on your platform.
Yes, sir. I mean, early life, let's set the tone with the foundation, man. You moved more than 18 times that I read in your bio before adulthood. I mean, that's a lot of changing scenes and making new friends. Kind of touch on that process and what it was like growing up in West Philadelphia.
Oh, absolutely. So I grew up in a household. My mother raised 7 children on welfare, where she basically struggled to keep the lights on. And we moved constantly around the city. So I got used to like instability, uncertainty, and without a margin of safety. And so what happened is that I was kind of like a knucklehead, because my mother was married at one point and then got divorced. And so I was really upset and angry about everything. And so I pretty much had to like say, what am I going to do with my life? And so what happened is one time my mother said, all right, you're going to spend some time with your stepdad. And that's when it got really crazy, because we were in a studio apartment in North Philadelphia where we had a hot plate. We didn't have a stove. We had a bathroom sheet. We didn't have a bathroom door. We had a shower. We had a bathtub without a shower. And we had rats and roaches and about 15 people living in the studio apartment. And my stepdad at that point looked at me and said, do you want to be an F-up like me, your mother, and your siblings? Because I had siblings who were teenage moms and at a young age. And so that really hit me. That was the first time an adult talked to me that way. He said, don't do as I do. Do as I say. I know what it takes to be successful. I just haven't been able to apply myself. And so at that point, I said, I'm going to take the perfect from the imperfect person and start to shift my mindset. So I had this internal mindset shift, and that's when my life really started to take off. It all started from that middle age point and say, I'm going to turn my life around. And then the story just started going.
Many people grew up in difficult circumstances, but not everyone breaks the cycle. At what point did you realize that there could be something different, not just for you, but for the people around you? Because like I said in the early part of the introduction, is that you are also giving back and impacting lives to teach people the ropes of what you're doing.
So for me, once I started to change the way I looked at the world and the way I comport myself, from smoking and drinking and acting like a fool in middle school from 4th grade to 8th grade and getting D's and C's and a few B's, I realized that I'm actually smart. I can do this. So then I got into high school and I started to change my environment. So I started to hang out in nurturing environments where people were positive and they pour into me and they believe in me and they encourage me. And then I said, I need to go and find my own personal board of directors, which are going to be my mentors and sponsors that are going to put their name on the line for me, open doors for me. And so I started to create this ecosystem that was positive. And so once I was doing that, I realized that if I can change my own life, if I can save myself, then I can save others. And so I graduated valedictorian from high school, got a full scholarship to go to Bowdoin College. And then I was working on Wall Street. And I realized, I said, let me start building out the future that I want. And then I can turn back and help the loved ones. So while I was doing internships, I would go home and buy stuff for family members. And then eventually, after working at Goldman Sachs and then starting a real estate business, I started doing what I call transformational wealth. We always hear about generational wealth, which is a north to south concept. Transformational wealth is a west to east concept where I pretty much establish myself, establish my business, then I can hire family members and loved ones today. So I hired my brother as my real estate agent on $1 million deal. He gets a 3% commission, $30,000. He was able to buy a house for himself, his wife, and his 6 children and move out of the city into the suburb of Philly. And then he was able to also help his mother-in-law and father-in-law buy their own duplex. So what I did is I said, I hired my brother, I hired my aunt to help with cleaning, my stepmom with property management, my nephew with property management, my other nephew, my other niece, my sister with cleaning. And so what I did is I said, I want you guys to improve your lives today so you can start buying assets. And also when my brother walks down the street with his son and they see my building that says KAYR, they're not only going to say, hey, look, I work for your uncle. They're going to say, we work for your uncle, but we also own the building. So what I try to do is transform lives today. And it all started from that poor kid in Philly saying, I think I can do it. So when I graduated from high school, then graduated from college, I got that job. Then I started buying real estate. I had 1 unit in 2009, 9 units 2018, 35 rental units in 2019, and then 105 in 2020, and now I'm at 160 plus. So I bought 70 during the pandemic because I started to believe in myself. And then I start opening opportunities for my loved ones and my friends and family where it's bigger than me because like I tell people, I'm not self-made, I am community made. So my community has made me and I take from all these people and I try to give back by helping others.
Once again, listen to I Am Refocused Radio and watching us online, talking to our guest today. He has a website. Go to KRmotivates.com. That's K, the letter R, motivates.com.
KAYR, KAYR, motivates.com.
Yes, KAYR, motivates.com. Let's talk about breaking cycles even further because you have a book called Can't Break Me. And it's a story about what we've been talking about already. And you have it right on cue. And we didn't practice that, guys. So that's when you know it's the chemistry. So when you think about the process of getting your thoughts together for this book to further detail your story, what's some of the things that people can gain as far as wisdom? Because breaking points is real.
And so the reason why I have like a chess piece on the front of the book and named it Can't Break Me is because every turn of my life, when I was getting ready to do something amazing, I'll give you some examples. The world sometimes takes more than it gives. And so there were times when I was trying to build something and then the world tried to tear me down. So when I went off to Bowdoin College, I got a presidential scholarship. And I was going off to Maine. First, my family got on the plane. And my young brother, who's 1 year younger than me, he was going off to prison for attempted murder, 1 year apart. And then another pivotal moment in my life, when I was getting ready to finish business school, my biological dad passed away in the spring. And my mother passed away that Christmas in the same year. And so it's like every time I'm moving forward, there's something in this world trying to break me. And just like this past Christmas, my sister passed away. She overdosed and was found on the sidewalk right when I'm getting ready to launch my book campaign and start going after something. So what I tell people is that the world sometime will try to break you. And you feel as though when you're tired, when you feel alone, when you feel as though you're losing hope, that's when you got to keep coming out the corner swinging no matter what it throws at you. So I tell people the book Can't Break Me. It is not a success story. It's a promise to myself and to anyone else who have experienced loss or a setback that your circumstances may explain you, but but they do not get to define you. And so it's so important that we understand, look, my circumstances, they explain me, but they don't get to define me. And so my past has shaped who I am, but it does not define who I am. And so I've learned how to be resilient. I've learned how to figure out ways to sharpen my tool despite what the world throw at me and try to break me.
You also talk to people a lot about making systems, and you emphasize that instead of motivation. Why is motivation overrated? And when can someone start to see that, you know what, trying to do systems is probably a better alternative than just being motivated?
I 100% believe that motivation, it comes and go. And so what I say is I want you to focus on like the 3 Ds. First, you got to have the desire. You got to want more. You got to believe more. You got to have a vision, a dream. And then what I want you to do is have the discipline to stick to your routine. Regardless if you're tired, how you feel, if you're up or down, I want you to have that discipline. And then the third one is the determination. You have to be determined because you actually will have to push sometimes extremely hard. It's good that you have the routine, but I need you to push forward, push through it, because that determination is going to make you keep going. And so I say, look, I can't come up with the motivation every day. Sometimes I'm going to have down days. Sometimes I'm going to have high days. But if I stick to my 3 Ds, I have that desire, that burning desire that just won't let me stop. And I stick to my discipline in and out, day in, day out. And then I determine, that means despite if I fail, because I can be disciplined, I can fail, but I have to be willing to push through because failure is just a step towards success. And so I really encourage people to say, look, if you do what's necessary, then you do what's possible, you'll find yourself doing the impossible. So when I actually graduated from middle school, one of my classmates wrote in my autograph book, "I can't believe you made it," because I had siblings that didn't even graduate from high school or even start high school. And they were pregnant really young, or a brother who went to prison for attempted murder. So people are like, you're not going to make it. You're a knucklehead. You're nobody. And so what I did is I said, I'm just going to go and make sure I don't miss school every day. I'm going to make sure that I ask questions, turn my assignments in. I'm going to just do the bare minimum. And then I did what was necessary. Then I started doing what was possible. So before I used to go to Chinese store, I would order, can I get a rib fried rice? Because I didn't know how to enunciate shrimp fried rice. So therefore I asked the teacher, would you spend 1 hour a week with me to teach me how to enunciate words? Because I know that I want a better future. I want to change my life. So 1, I had to be vulnerable. And 2, I had to be willing to ask for help. So I did what was necessary. Then I did what was possible. And then I found myself doing the impossible, getting a full scholarship, presidential scholarship, going off to Bowdoin College, going to work at Goldman Sachs, the #1 firm in investment banking, then able to go to an Ivy League graduate school. And this is the kid that they barely said was going to make it out of middle school. So anything is possible once you have the internal mindset shift that nobody is coming to save you. So you have to make a decision. Am I going to be just upset with the world because my mom wasn't there, my dad wasn't there, my friend wasn't there, my love isn't there? Or am I going to take ownership and say, you know what, starting today, I'm going to build the life that I want?
When you reflect back to your first property, you talk about systems, you talk about owning it, and that was something that set the tone for years to come. What are some of the value principles or core ingredients that helped you to not just sustain your success, but to build upon that first sale?
And I think that is a great critical question, because a lot of people question my strategy. So you notice I said in 2009, I owned 1 rental unit, 1 rental property. By 2018, I got to 9 rental properties. And that's a 9-year gap. And people say, why are you going too slow? What's going on? I thought you're smart. I know you're good looking. And I said, you know what? Look, run your own race at your own pace. So for me, I came from nothing. So the first thing I had to make sure is I get return of investment. That means I want my money to come back to me. And then later I was focused on return on investment. So when you have nothing, you have to realize I need that foundation. So I made sure that I had the foundation, and then I had to say, look, get the 3 C's. I talk about intellectual capital, which means that you're educating yourself in school or outside of school through books, some type of way. Get intellectually educated, get that intellectual capital. The next one is social capital. Build those relationships with contractors, business people, nonprofit people. And the third one is financial capital. We live in economy, America is a capitalist society. So understand how to access capital, grow capital, build capital. So I wanted to master these things throughout the first 9 years. So I said, I'm going to take my time and not be distracted. If I had 10 properties within the first year, I probably would have been overwhelmed because I don't come from a family of wealth or a family of investors. So I said, I approach it like a security guard. If I only have one camera to focus on at the mall, I'm going to make sure no one gets by me. They're not going to be able to pull a fast one because I'm going to focus on one screen. But if I have 50 different screens, I could be distracted and people going to get stuff by me. So I said, I'm going to do one property per year on average and really master it so that I don't get ripped off. So I don't spend too much money in this area. So I don't get conned by a contractor or a tenant. And so therefore, those 9 years, I focus on mastery. If you do what's necessary, then you do what's possible. You find yourself doing the impossible. And I always say things done well is done soon enough. So I spent my time really developing my systems. How am I going to interact with contractors? How am I going to interact with banks? How am I going to interact with investors? I want to understand the whole process step by step. And I think that is key. A lot of us think that success like speed. You don't necessarily have to go fast to become successful. And so I said, I am going to go out there and I'm going to work hard and I'm going to work smart because I'm going to have a combination of the two.
Once again, listen on Refocused Radio, talking to our guest today, KAYR. Go to his website, is KAYRmotivates.com. And next question for you is for those who are watching, listening, they're like, you know what? I might be interested in getting into real estate, but we all know that's the first thought. The second scary thought is when life gets real and you really have to actually follow through with what you're thinking you might want to be into. With what you've been able to gain from being part of this industry, what are some values that they should focus on first before they consider going all in?
Well, I think what is so important, I just highlighted on a few seconds ago, which is run your own race at your own pace. So, and run your own race the way you want to run it. What was fascinating is that when I started, and you'll probably hear on social media, everybody saying, you got to get an LLC to buy your first rental property. And when I did my research, that's not necessarily true. Prior to the Great Recession, you could only buy 4 properties and have your name and a mortgage attached to it. But after the Great Recession, the government changed the rules and said you can get up to 10 properties and have mortgages in your personal name. And the reason why the mortgages in your personal name is better than in the LLC when you first start is because when you get it in your personal name, your interest rate is lower. Sometimes it can be as low as 100, 200 basis points. So if the interest rate in the LLC, if you get it and it's like 7%, and your personal name will be 5%. So therefore you're saving in terms of the interest expense. Also with your personal name, there are programs, whether it's the NACA program, FHA program, where you get down payment flexibility. You can put 0% down, 5% down, 3.5% down. When you buy your LLC, you have to put 20% down. The insurance premium and the closing costs is cheaper in your personal name than it is in an LLC. So what I really learned, and I especially encourage people that's first starting, is you have to run your race at your own pace, but you have to be willing to do the work, roll up your sleeves, and master your craft. And so I started to really peel back the onion and say, what am I getting myself into? How can I figure out the base case scenario? How can I figure out the worst case scenario? And how can I hope for the best? So I really, really start to analyze the data from a macro level and a macro level. And so I think that is so important. And I start figuring out, all right, who do I need on my team? A lot of us talk about these big ideas and big dreams, but let's really figure it out. Okay, how does capital work? How can I get a good return on my money? Who do I need to be on my team? Do I need a lawyer? Do I need a real estate agent? Do I need a property manager? Do I need a contractor? These are things that we really, really have to think about before we just jump in. And the good thing is that you do not have to do 1,000 things in order to do well. Just like if you look at a baseball game, you don't have to hit home runs the entire game to win. You can hit singles and win. And so when I work with students, and what I always tell people is, look, take your time. You don't have to be in a rush. Things done well are done soon enough.
When you think about how sometimes things can go wrong in business and life, what framework helps you to stay calm and keep a clear head when it's easily maybe well deserved to have an outlast or what they say nowadays, crash out? How do you stay calm? And even if you weren't calm, how were you able to navigate back to the center and keep your composure?
I think that's a really good question. And what happens is a lot of people are afraid of being vulnerable. And I think that is so important. So when I don't understand something, I may call, it can be my professional counselor or therapist, or it can be my pastor, or it can be an uncle or aunt, a cousin, a mentor, and say, look, I'm having a tough day. I don't have the answers. I can call my attorney. How should I approach this? I can call my lender. How should I approach this? Once you're willing to admit that you've done something wrong or you're having a hard time, whether that's calling the county saying I'm behind in taxes, I want to get on a payment plan, or you're calling your lender saying I want to get a loan modification. It's so important. I think that is how we can stay humble, and we realize that we all have difficult days. And so what I'm going to also do is try to find outlets to help lift my spirits when I feel as though I'm having a dark day. So for me, I make sure I'm working out 3 times a week. I'm also making sure that I'm praying in the morning and at night, and I'm reading a Bible verse. I'm also listening to certain music to lift my spirits. I'm going on walks. I'm eating certain healthy food, hanging out with loved ones that's going to keep building me up when I'm feeling down or I don't have the right answers. So that's how you avoid that crash out, because you're not letting it all boil up inside. You're willing to let others in. And I think that is a sign of strength, is when you're not that you can just go through things and just make it seem like nothing affects you. It's when you can actually say, you know what? I'm not having the best day.
Someone says not the weight that crushes you, is how you carry it. And when you think about you and your own career, from where you started to where it's now, what do you think about has worked for you, creating systems to carry the weight? Because I can only imagine the higher you go, the more pressure and the harder it is to breathe.
Oh, yes. So what happened is that, and my book outlines this, Can't Break Me. It shows my journey from being in the mood of survival. So I went from survival to structure to stability. Not only financially, economically, and emotionally. Because before, I'm all over the place. I'm not loving myself that much. I'm questioning my self-esteem, my confidence. But as I succeed a little by little, I start feeling more confident. I start having people I can rely on to help me figure out the next step. What should I do for my retirement? How should I get this bank loan? Who should be on my team? What licenses do I need? What tutors do I need? And so I think that is like what I really, really work on. And then another thing is that I don't act like pain doesn't exist. My approach is, what do we do with the pain? How do we respond to the pain? Like you were mentioning the crash out. And so I think that I've put in place systems not only for the business, but systems also on the personal side that's going to benefit me when I have those days when I don't know what's the right move.
I like that because I'm a visual person, and I just had a little theater in my mind going off of, okay, what is a structured way and the wrong way? Chaotic way would be someone, picture this, running block from block, trying to paint a mural. Yes. Versus staying planted where you are and build from that spot. How important is it for people to bloom from where they're planted? Because a lot of times there are times we should get up and move, but why is it dangerous to be scatterbrained and jump place to place and try this and quit that? Because that's not productive.
And it's pretty much like, some people say, hey, look, I know 1,000 different subjects, and they don't know anything substantively. And so I tell people, I'd rather for you go deep. And I tell people, look, I know a couple of things. I don't know a whole lot of things, especially when I first started. I said, but I have a very unique set of skills that I have acquired over many, many years in the real estate space and in the finance space that make me a very, very dangerous person. And so I would rather encourage you to figure out what you are really good at and what really interests you, and spend time, read 5 books, read articles, talk to people in the industry, become really good at that thing. And that will make you dangerous versus saying, I did real estate for one day and I was flipping properties on Monday. On Tuesday, I'm buying whole properties. On Wednesday, I'm doing Airbnb. On Thursdays, I'm flipping vacant land. And on Fridays, now I'm a real estate agent. You're spreading yourself so thin that you're not going to have any mastery. So for me, I really think that the riches are in the niches. So figure out what your niche is, and then you have that foundation, and then you can become a generalist and invest in all these different things. But you got to have that solid foundation. I was telling someone the other day, I was able to quit my full-time job when I was 37 because I spent so much time buying cash flowing assets and setting myself up with systems so I can live for the rest of my life off those properties, even if they don't have to be the best properties in the whole world. But I set the system up so I have enough of a cushion to take care of all my monthly expenses and enough money to help my family and loved ones and nonprofit causes that I'm interested in. And so now I can be creative. I can write a book, I write 2 books, I give speeches, do all these other things, because if we do what we have to do now, then we can do what we want later. And so that is really embracing this idea of delayed gratification and sacrifice that will pay off eventually.
Once again, listen to I Am Refocused Radio, and you can go to his website, KAYR. Go to his website. It's KAYRmotivates.com. Again, that's KAYRmotivates.com. I know we're flying out of time, but this will make the podcast version. I have one more question I want to ask you, and that is, your story was featured at Yale University. Kind of give us a backstory in that, because when you think of names like Dr. Elijah Anderson, kind of tell the audience a little bit about that experience.
I will. So what is so crazy is that I was going to University High School. We had like about 2,500 to 2,700 students in Philly. And we had one counselor for the whole school. We actually were in the bottom, which is like one of the poorest parts of West Philly. And Professor Elijah Anderson was at the University of Penn as a professor. And so I had started a program, after school program, which we turned into a nonprofit with the help of Professor Elijah Anderson and some other leaders. So I met him when I was like a little poor high school kid. And he was always involved in my life. He attended my father's funeral, and he noticed my trajectory. So he talks about sociology, about like poor kids and code of the streets. And what happened is we grew and became close friends. And in 2021, he reached out to me. He said, KAYR, you have a really interesting story. You mind if I write a chapter about your life in my upcoming book? And he wrote a chapter about my life in his upcoming book, Black and White, and Blacks and White Spaces. And everybody really resonated with a lot of people. And then I also got featured by Market Watch and all these other places. And they were like, KAYR, you need to write a book. And so I asked Professor Anderson if he can help me think through refine my writing and put together this book and help me shape it. And so he's been very involved. And recently, Yale University, I was able to talk about my book, and I'm going to talk at Temple University and Boston University and a couple of other schools. So it's been a full circle moment for me to have a mentor that I used to look up to on a stage, and now I'm sitting next to him. And so it's pretty cool.
I mean, I just wrapped the credits right there. I have nothing else to say right there. I mean, that's a mic drop moment right there, and I'll just leave that there. I will say this though, West Philadelphia, born and raised, and man, from that to this, and you still got places that you're going, and you still got platforms that you're going on. One thought I want you to leave for our audience: if someone feels like they they plateaued and they're like, man, I still got air in my lungs. I don't want this to be the end of me. Like, I know there's better in me. What would you say to that person and say, you know what? If you're breathing, you still got time, but time's of the essence. You need to start moving like ASAP.
One thing I would say is that you have to do basically three things. One, you have to accept the fact that you are not alone. So because what happens, it's in our mind that we're all alone, that no one cares about it, no one loves us. Yes, there are people out here who do care about you. So number one, you're loved. Someone cares about you. So number one is you're not alone. Tell yourself you're not alone. Number two is be willing to be vulnerable. And what I mean by vulnerable is figure out where you need help. It may be at one point I had to ask a teacher or someone for some food or a jacket, I had to just bite my ego and just say, I need help. Or I went to a church and all the people in there weren't good people, but there were enough good people that I found one or two people that can help me, or after school program. And so I would say, one, you're not alone. Number two, be vulnerable. And number three, you got to want to change your life more than anybody else, because nobody's coming to save you. And so I had embraced those three things, and it changed my life.
And with that said, get a copy of the book. It's available on the website. It's KAYRmotivates.com. Like I always want to say to you, KR, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to tell everybody about this interview, and I am so delighted that I had the chance to be on your platform.